Hi, I'm Tyson,
I'm Colin.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Adam.
and we're the Gamesmiths, and we're here to learn how to play Runic. To get us started, Ryan's got the rules.
All right. Back here. Runic is a clever, non-collectible card game with deep strategy elements pitting you, a powerful mage, against another in a contest to acquire knowledge and the admiration of your Lord Archivist. The duel takes place within the Grand University of Nanesh, which is composed of twin libraries, which are vast archives containing spells of wonder and terror. The grounds of the libraries, which also contain spells, and the citadels, which secure and guard prized runes that are only unlockable by certain types of magic. Manage your hand of 6 spell cards by using them to gain additional spells or rare runes. Beware, though, as your opponent may contest or deny you these sought-after prizes. Casting your spells will cause them to be more powerful the next time they are utilized, but you can't simply fling your spells about. The arcane forces of harmony and chaos must always be in balance, and you must at all times keep them in check. Make sure to focus your energies on gaining favor of the Lord Archivist by demonstrating your knowledge in a particular arena of magic, gaining arcane-rich runes, or using the trickery of the chameleon spell. Once you've gathered 7 favor or one of the great libraries deplete, the contest ends, at which time the Lord Archivist judges you and your opponent, giving you each one last opportunity to garner favor. The player with the most favor wins and secures reverence among the High Council Nanesh. So we have done the setup here for the first playthrough. Walk you through everything real quick. So it looks a little better. We're going to, at the beginning of the game, each player gets a rules reference card. One of them is marked on the back with this little wizard staff, which means they're the prime mage, which means they're essentially first player. They're going to go first.
Okay.
Then each player has their scorecard here that allows them to track their score. So right now I'm at 0 points, and then 1, and as I get up to 7 here, when I win the game, it'll look like that. And if
Is that just flavor text?
get above 10, yeah.
Okay.
And it's all just flavor text there.
If you win at 7, how do you get to 10?
You can as soon as you get to 7, it like triggers the game, like end game state. So I think more points you can score over 7.
Got it.
And then and as we'll go over, the person if I get 8 points on my turn, and I'm playing Tyson, then Tyson would get 1 turn to kind of finish up, and he could, in theory, get up to 9 at that point or something like that. So just depending on how it works. Then we have our spell books here that show we each have matching spell books, and each spell book kind of increases each time you use the spell. It increases in power, and so this is here to kind of track that. We have our chaos our chaos spells, which are anything with a dark back here is a chaos spell, and then we have our harmony spells here, and then we each have a hand of those chaos and harmony spells that we keep in hand. So we have 1 copy. The other copies are shuffled into the libraries here, with 1 on the grounds, and once if the spell is taken here from the grounds, then a new one will just flip over and replace it from the library. And then each side, chaos and harmony, each have a citadel, and you can come in here to gather the runes, and those are going to give you favor points. And like we said before, 7 favor points wins you the game.
And it looks like these circles or triangles are what shows whether they're chaos or harmony, right?
Yes. Those, and then the colors, and there are, and then there's a few different things, so then there's also wisdom or runic mastery, and those are represented by the different icons as well. So we'll get to that. So the game lasts until a player has 7 favor points or one of these libraries is depleted. At that point, the current player finishes their turn, and then the opponent gets to take a final turn. After the opponent's final turn, we'll determine the final judgment, and we'll get to that in a second. The final judgment is worth 1.5 points, which means there won't be a tie. because one player is always going to have half a point, so there never be, you can't have exactly the same points. At the end of that, at that point, the player with the most favorite points wins. And if both players have an equal amount, the game is a draw, which can happen if neither player fails, if either player fails to earn. If nobody gets the final judgment point, it can possibly end in a tie. Spells are your main type of card in Runic. Each of the 6 spells belong to one of 3 schools and one of 2 spheres. The combination of sphere and school is the spell's type. The spell's type is shown in the upper left of the card, so that's what we were just talking about. So, for example, Subterfuge is a Harmony Runic spell.
We aren't playing with Subterfuge.
Yeah, we are. It's right here.
Oh, yeah.
Is a Harmony Runic spell. So Runic spells are the ones with the sword on it, have red banners, and have a rune sword inside their type icon. All Runic spells have an X effect donated by X rune, which enables the gaining of runes, which are the primary source in the game. So getting like Subterfuge up to its like X level here allows you to acquire a rune of that type. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Opportunity spells have purple banners and have like the 2 kind of globe arcs inside. These spells have varying utilities, and wisdom spells revolve around drawing more spells, and those are the blue brains, and those revolve around drawing more spells or denying your opponent's spells. And then the 2 spheres of magic are Chaos, which are the black-backed circle spells, and Harmony, which are the white-backed triangle spells. Chaos spells are centered around hindering your opponent's plans, and Harmony spells are centered around giving you some tool to achieve your own goals. Each spell contains a variety of effects. There are 3 types of effects in the game: while bound, augment, and balance bonus. So while bound is the infinity symbol, augment is the circle symbol, and balance is the scales. While bound effects, so Wither has a while bound effect as well as an augment effect. Since both of these affect opponents, they both have, I skipped a part. Spells which directly affect your opponents have red borders around them for emphasis. So you can see right here, they have little red borders if they. So like Wither, like they said, both their effects reduce the X effect of spells opposing this by 1, and look at X cards in your opponent's hand and discard 1. So those both affect the opponents, so that's why they're both outlined in red there. So the infinity effects there are continuously in effect while the spell is in the university. Augment effects may be utilized once by performing the augment action, and balance bonus effects are triggered when the spell gets added to your spell book, usually as the result of your opponent performing the cast bound spell action or you performing the channel a spell action. And we'll get to those. Here are some general guidelines. Draw means to draw from a single library unless it says to do other. So if it says draw 3 cards, you draw 3 cards out of one library. You don't go 2 out of this and 1 out of the other, unless it specifies. Discard means to place the card in a common discard pile, and anytime a library is disturbed searching for cards, shuffle it unless stated otherwise. And if an effect lets you view multiple cards and not keep all of them, return the others from where they came. X effects. A given spell utilizes 2 different types of effects. A spell will always have an effect which depends on the spell's level, called an X effect. Another which do not depend on the spell's levels. The X effect of a spell is marked with an X next to the relevant effect. So, when revolving an X, replace an X with the current level of the spell. The X effect of illumination, for example, is draw X spells and keep 1 of them. At level 1, you draw 1 spell and keep it. At level 3, you would draw 3 spells and keep 1. That makes sense to everybody. So you'll just we'll get to that here in a second. How these build up. we'll get to that right now, actually. So your spellbook is this array of cards right here, this 3x2 array. The level of each of your spells is determined by the number of cards in that spell's stack in your spellbook. As spells are added to your spellbook, those stacks that hold them will grow in size and thus the levels of your spell. So as you decide to play more, so like as I add another level of illumination, it'll go on like that. And so now you can see my illuminations at level 2, my chameleons at level 2, and my withers at level 2, and everything else is at level 1. And so then when I go to, do the augment, I was gonna say activate. So when I go to augment illumination, I can see clearly I have 2 illumination spells. So that means I'm going to draw 2 and keep 1 of them. Real quick. Spellbook balance. The arcane forces of harmony and chaos must be in check at all times, and you, an aspiring master of the arcane, must of course adhere to this by making sure your spellbook is balanced. That is, within each row of spells, which in each school, so that's the rows, not the columns. The sizes of the stack must be at most 1 apart from each other. Spells do not get added to the spellbook if doing so would upset this balance. So
You can't go heavy
right.
on one.
My illumination right now is at level 2. If I want it to get to level 3, I first have to get my wither up to level 2. I can't get this to 3 and this to 1. For example, well, you got it. They just gave the same example I did. Your knowledge is the total knowledge mastery. So your knowledge, and so that's one thing. Oh, I forgot to say that we were doing the layout. So each person is going to have a specific mastery. So mine is wisdom mastery, so that's going to be my bottom row here. Tyson's there is runic mastery, so that's going to be his top row here. Your knowledge is the total number of cards in your spell book. So at the beginning of the game, your knowledge is 6. The knowledge that you have in a school or sphere is the total number of cards in that stack. So right now you would have 3 in chaos, 3 in harmony, and then 2 in each of, these rows here. Your knowledge mastery incentivizes you to have knowledge in a particular school of sphere. So right here, I want to have like 5 wisdom mastery. So I'm encouraged to have these blue spells to be up to level 5. And that gives me 1 favor point. And if I get them up to level 7.
Well, if that's 2 and 3, that's still 5, right?
Correct. Yes. That's what I meant. Yes. So these combined should get up to, once these get up to 5, 6, 7, I start scoring points for being very good at these spells in particular.
Tyson, you're the
Runic, so I would do the top ones that get those things.
So we're going to skip over mana for now because we're not using that this first time.
Okay.
So in Runic, the conflict revolves around 6 zones, known as the University. These are Chaos Library, Chaos Grounds, Chaos Citadel, and then Harmony Citadel, Harmony Grounds, Harmony Library. So these are your 6 zones. Each zone either contains spells or runes as rewards. Citadels exclusively house the rune cards. The grounds of the libraries contain a single spell card, and libraries contain multiple spells from that sphere. You play spells from your hand to the university, usually as the result of a bind a spell. Your spells are bound from your hand to one of the 6 zones, meaning placed face up next to the rewards on your side of the zone. So I would play it, if I wanted to do like a bound spell, I would play it like there on the citadels on my side. So, and then Tyson would be, you can go ahead and take that into your hand, and you would play opposing, one. And I'm sure that's wrong where we put them, but that's the basic gist. Once bound, any infinity effect that's on them takes effect. Each zone can only ever contain at most a single bound spell from each player. A spell of yours in the university is opposed by an opponent's spell, also bound in the same zone. Since libraries are so large, you may only bind a spell to a library if you've bound a spell to its grounds. So does that make sense? So first you're going to bound like to the grounds here, and then you're going to bind to the library. And so you can't play here first. You have to play here and then here.
But what is that doing? I don't understand.
We'll get to that in a second.
You haven't said.
No, I haven't really said yet.
Okay.
They just have their effects. We'll go into that a little more in a second. And then some of them say like Wither here, reduce the X effects of spells opposing this by 1. So that so opposing spells are, so, you know, if Tyson has his destruction spell over here, I have my Wither spell over here, my thing is opposing his, so it's reducing his value there. The mighty runes are a significant source of favor points. Each rune has a runic requirement in order to gain the runes. That means to gain the reward, the spell being cast must have the amount of runic stated on the card. So in other words, so this one, so the runes of Harmonious Mage, for the example that they use, this one needs 3 runes for you to be able to get it. So that means you're going to need a spell like Subterfuge that gives you X runes of a power of 3 to actually be able to take this card, if you'd like. So since both Destruction and Subterfuge have a runic X effect, so both of these cards, you would have to have them at power level 3 if you wanted to take that. Yeah, just like I said. When gained, these runes give you a combination of favor points and or spells. Spells are drawn from the appropriate library. So this one here, you can choose when you take this first one, you can take 1 favor point or 1 spell from the library. When you go for the second rune, you can take 2 favor points or 1 favor point and 1 spell from the library. So you have a choice every time you take a reward, if you want to take points or points and more cards, essentially. In Runic, you will take 2 actions. If you are the prime mage, you only get 1 action on your first turn of the game to kind of make it fair. The actions you perform do not need to be different. If you have actions remaining, your only legal actions are mana actions. You may, if you wish, forfeit those actions. If you have no legal actions to take, you must forfeit your actions. And after each action, make sure to restock the grounds if they are empty. Make sure that the Harmony and Chaos grounds contain at least 1 card, if not, flip 1 up. If there are no cards in that library, then disregard this, and we're probably at the end of the game.
Okay.
So the actions are laid out. You have your action reference here. They're only on the front. The back of the back of it is just the game end and how it, just some rules. So the first thing you can do is bind a spell, which is take a spell from your hand and place it face up in one of the 6 zones like we talked about. You may not bind a spell to a zone where you have bound a spell. You may not bind a spell to the Chaos Library if you don't have one of the Chaos grounds. So like we said, it can't do. So you can't have 2 in one place, and you have to bind first in the grounds before you can bind in the library. The second thing you can do is augment a bound spell. If you have a bound spell upright that has a augment effect, you may trigger that spell by turning it sideways. So like here we have Destruction, and it's worth X runes, and right now I've got level 1, so it's going to be only worth 1. But if I turn it sideways, this spell is considered +1 level this turn, so now it's worth 2. Kind of thing like that. So I can decide as my turn, I can play this, it's worth 1, and then I can, for a second action, augment it, and now it's worth 2. Turning a spell sideways is merely a marker that has been augmented and does not affect anything else about the spell. Note, unless a game effect says to do so, augmented spells do not become unaugmented. So they don't automatically, unaugment themselves. Cast a bound spell. Any of your bound spells, so that's, something that's already down here, may be cast as an action. Unless otherwise stated, you may never cast a spell the turn it enters the university. So you have to wait one turn before you can cast it. Unlike other actions, cast a bound spell can involve both players as part of the action. If the spell that you wish to cast is opposed, your opponent will also cast their spell. So let's say, we'll have Wither, and you can put your Destruction in there.
Oh, where's my destruction? There it is.
So let's say these are both contested here. So right now you put that there, and it's worth 1 rune, but my Wither makes it -1, so now it's at 0, so it's kind of blocking each other. And so I'm going to say I'm going to cast this spell. I'm going to cast this spell that's down here. If I do that, that forces you to cast yours as well. So while cast a bound spell is an action, when any game effect references casting, it's taken to mean the act of casting a spell, whether you chose it or whether your opponent made you do it. So if I say I'm going to cast this spell, that forces you to cast your spell, and any actions that happen because you cast a spell would happen. Just because I'm the one that made you do it, you still cast a spell. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So every time a spell is cast, you follow the below. Check eligibility. Check to determine which players are eligible to receive rewards. If your spell is opposed to the ground or citadel, then the player with the strictly highest level of spell is eligible to gain rewards. Not otherwise, neither of you is eligible for rewards. If your spell is opposed to the library, both you and opponent. If your spell is opposed at grounds or citadel, then your opponent, which is strictly highest level, is eligible to gain rewards. Otherwise, neither of you are eligible to gain rewards.
So in this instance, we would not be eligible except
Right,
for the fact
'cause
that
we're
you
both-
played Wither, which does that reduce the value of my spell?
Right, but it doesn't reduce the level. So they're
Oh,
both
okay,
level 1.
okay.
So at this point, neither of us would be eligible for rewards. If their spell is opposed to the library, so if it were here, both people are eligible. And if your spell is unopposed, then only you are eligible to gain rewards. Whichever player is eligible to receive rewards now gain the rewards starting with the player whose turn it is. Gaining a reward means drawing the top card, either spell or rune, from the zone where the spell was cast. Note, for a rune to be gained, the eligible player must also have sufficient runic on the spell being cast. If not, they do not gain the rune.
So you'd play the subterfuge or the destruction here, and in order to get those,
Right.
I have to have the level that is equal to whatever is currently there.
Correct.
Okay.
But I would have withered you, so that wouldn't work. And
Right.
kind of but you wouldn't be eligible because you don't have a higher level spell and all that stuff. So but basically, you got it. So if you gain a spell as a reward, it goes into your hand. If you gain runes as a reward, choose an option on the runes and then discard it from play. So get your points, get your cards, and then just discard the rune. Then, if the current player stocks their spell book, check if adding the cast spell will maintain the balance or not. If the balance will be remained, resolve the balance effect on that spell if it has one. After, add the spell to the spell book by placing it face up on the correct stack. Make sure to splay out the spell so it can be easily seen how many are in each stack. So we would cast these here. They would resolve, kind of thing like that. So I'd cast this. We'd both take them off. And then I would go first. And I would look, okay, I'm going to add this Wither to here. And it doesn't have a balance effect. But if it did, so Chameleon has a balance effect. It gains 1. So if I was casting Chameleon and adding it, I check to make sure it balances. So if I was going to add a third Wither right now, it wouldn't balance, and I wouldn't get to add this to my spell book. So then you would do the same So balance would be maintained, so I'm allowed to add this. So now my wither levels up to 2, but it doesn't have a balance effect, so I don't get anything. Then my opponent would follow the same procedure. So then Tyson would do the same thing. Destruction balances for him all right. He can put that there. You can demonstrate knowledge. So the 3 actions we've talked about so far are bind a spell, which means put it down here, augment a bound spell, which means turn a spell that's already down here sideways.
To pump it.
Cast
Just
a
for
bound.
a turn, or does it stay like that?
It stays like that permanently unless it says something.
Because yours said just for 1 turn.
Yeah, some of them say this turn. So destruction says this turn.
So does it go back, or do you never get a
This
value
one
out
does
of
if it
again?
says for the turn. Or no, I'm sorry, no. Then you just wouldn't get, I don't think you'd get
It's a
value out of it
one-time
anymore. I
value?
think it's a one-time use, yeah.
But some can just stay turned forever and keep
Or
adding
some
value?
things, no, some things just, so like destruction would go down here on this turn, and it would be worth 1, because I'm at level 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I turn it sideways, it would be worth 2 for a turn. And then after that, it would come back and it would just be worth 1 going
Okay.
forward, and just would be stuck at 1 forever.
So can
Until I cast it,
Okay.
and then I can play another one, right? So I cast it, and then I get whatever rewards. I'd power up my destruction, and then later in the game I'd draw another destruction spell, and then I
Yeah.
can play that and augment it again.
So you can cast an already augmented spell, and then it puts it back in your book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You just cast the spells. Yes. So then demonstrate knowledge, which means if you satisfy the minimum requirements stated on your knowledge mastery card, you may claim it and gain victory points based on your decree of achieving the objective. Discard this knowledge over and denote that you have claimed it. It cannot be claimed again later. So I can claim this right at 5 for 1 favor point, but then that's it. If I get up to 7 later, I can't get those 3 anyway. So at 1 point, you decide when you want to, you cash in and get these points. But that takes one of your actions, so if you never do that, even if you have 7 whatever, you'll lose those points if you never take the action to get it. So then there is channel a spell, which is mana, so we're going to ignore that one. And then after power, which is another mana, and then flaunt, which is another mana. We're not going to do those. So we're disregarding mana for this first playthrough.
So we're binding, augmenting, casting, and
Demonstrating
Doing
knowledge,
our-
cashing it.
which does that clear these when you cash in? Or
No,
you
that just clears
score-
this. I would
clears
just
that?
say, all right, I'm cashing in my wisdom. I have 5 right now. That's worth 1 point. It's gone. I can't do that
And
again.
you scored your points.
Right. I score my 1 point, and then I'm done.
it. Got it.
So, if next turn I get 2 more, wow, I just missed out on
Got it.
2 points, and that sucks for me.
So there's the 4 things you can do. The rest have to do with mana.
Yes, the rest have to do with mana, and we're not going to do that for the first playthrough. So, initiation game, which is what we're going to do here first. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed at first, don't worry. Play with the special settings initiation. You won't have access to the 3 mana actions, so we ignore those. And you'll play with the overpower spell instead of suppression.
We have overpower.
Yep. Please note this mode is not to be balanced and serves as a easier introduction to Runic. So I believe that is it. Everything else that we have in here is clarifications of cards and kind of specifications of stuff. So
So you're placing your spells, or what is that called?
Casting.
No,
Binding.
casting is binding. So you're binding spells, and you have to put it here or
you
here,
can go with citadels or grounds.
and then once
And then
grounds,
once you're in
you
grounds,
go
you
to
can go
library.
in library, yes.
And then he'll play on the other side, but when you cast, or
And you're not allowed to cast. So basically,
what if he doesn't play on the other side?
we can play
Are
a-
you fighting over these?
Yes.
Trying to
yeah.
win
So
them?
we can play out like a basic example, like turn here. So here's just like a basic turn. Is I'm going to go first, and I'm going to play destruction on this citadel. Since I'm going first, I only get to take one action my very first turn. So I'm going to place this here. This gives me 1 rune point at this location because it has this continuing
long as
effect
it's out.
of infinity, right? Now Tyson gets to go, and he gets to make 2 actions.
I will do grounds, and then can I augment the same one on
Yes.
the turn? I can't
You
bind
can't-
a spell
you-
on the same
You
turn.
can't cast it.
Or
the
cast
same
it.
turn it is bound, but
But
you
I can
can play
augment it.
and augment it. Yes.
So this one says that bind the spell to another zone, cast the spell immediately if it's now opposed. So if I can go here and then cast
right,
but I
I don't.
can't
I don't
because
think
it's-
it's gonna. Yeah.
because it's chaos, right? Or can harmony spells go in chaos territories?
Let me see if that works like that. Specifically, well, we can check specifically with subterfuge. Constant threat because when it's bound, it can move to another zone. Additionally, it more or less grants a free action if it is opposed after moving. It's a great spell to have on the board to lie in wait.
So then someone has to enter that. It activates when someone enters
No,
that.
no, no.
So you
he's
can take
allowed
your
to
second
move it. He's allowed
action to
augment
immediately
it, to
do
move
it.
somewhere and
then
pop it
cast
off
it.
if it's opposed. And I think it says. So let me check this here. Because I think you can bind it. You can't bind it like that, but I think it can be moved.
Look, that's on a dark one.
Yeah. So yes, you
Okay.
can. Yeah. There's an example where subterfuge is on the dark one. So yes, you can play. Yeah, you can play. Yeah.
So
the
then-
only
The
restrictions
only thing about the
are-
balance is you have to build these together.
Right.
Yeah. So the following, you may not bind a spell to a zone where you already have a bound spell. And you may not bind a spell to the Chaos Library if you're not bound to the grounds, and you Harmony Library if not bound to the Harmony grounds. So there's nothing wrong
Oh,
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Citadel is fine.
Right.
So if I cast it or bind it here, and then I can use my second action to augment, I can transfer
Move
the
it,
zone
yeah.
and then cast.
And then cast it.
And
so
then
now
those
that's going
cancel
to
and
force
get
us
rid
both
of-
to cast. So since we're both at level 1, so then when that's cast, we're going to check eligibility, which is here. Neither of us is higher than the other, so neither of us are eligible. Thank you. So what would happen here is they'd both just get removed. Since Tyson's the one that was casting, he'd go first. He'd check here, and now his subterfuge is up to level 2, and my destruction goes up to level 2.
And if they had a balance action on them, or
Those
whatever,
those would trigger, right?
right then.
Yeah.
Only if there's a balance between these two.
Correct.
Got it.
So then I could, for example,
This would be back in your hand, right?
yeah. So, oh yeah, sorry, Wither would be in my hand. And so then, like, the next turn would be mine, and I could say, I'm going to put down Illumination here on this Citadel, and then I'm going to activate it to draw a spell and keep one of them. So I'll pick which library I want to pick from. I'll draw from this
But
spell.
don't you have to be in the grounds to draw from the library?
Or no, I'm sorry, draw X spells. No, that just means
No, you just had
those
to
are just
stick to the
rewards
pile.
for casting. Yes. So when 'cause
Oh, okay,
remember
so
when
they
it says
exempt-
draw,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Remember when a spell says draw, it just means from one library or the other.
yeah.
Don't pick. So this spell activated, and like I said, each we can clarify each spell, but there is. So yeah, so I would activate this, and since it's level 1, I'm going to draw one spell, and keep one of them. So right here, I draw this. Now I have another. Oh wait, I already. Oh, whatever. Yeah, so I pick a library, I draw a spell.
Thanks.
Now I have my other card. That was my turn. Now Tyson can go. if
But
he'd
yours
like.
isn't worth any. What's this? Is it still just worth 1? Whatever.
Right, it's still just worth 1. So then now, like, what Tyson can do
I could
is
play
play
my
a card here.
destruction and make it +1 level, so now it's a level 2, but it's only for this turn. So I could play this.
But you can't cast spells.
Right, so I wouldn't want
The
to
turn
augment
without-
this
yeah, without-
on that turn. I'd
right.
want to wait till next turn to augment that potentially.
Right, so then you maybe just play another
Play
spell
another
down.
spell, so I would probably do that.
Okay, so, and then we go to our next turn, and I decide, okay, I'm going to cast this because
And
Before
it
he can
forces
augment
me
it.
before I could
before
augment
you can
it.
augment, I'm
Okay,
going to
let's say he
this.
augmented it though. What's going to happen? Because
If
I
he
get the
augmented
cancel
it,
out.
then his would be
situation.
a 2, so he would be a higher level, and he would meet the requirement, so he would get this. So let's just say that. So let's say whatever. So I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. I play these 2 more spells, or I decide I want to get into the grounds in the library over here. So I play these 2 more spells, and then or I bind these 2 more spells, and now it's Tyson's turn to go, and he says I'm going to augment, and then I'm going to cast this. So now I'm at level 2. So he's at level 2. So he is going to get this reward because he's the higher player. So he's going to get this reward. So he can decide to take a point or draw a card from the Harmony library. He decides to take a point. This just kind of goes off to the discard pile. That's out of the game. Then my spell would, and then his spell would go back here. His destruction goes up a level. And then my illumination would come back here, but my illumination has a balance activity, which is search any library for 1 spell and draw it. So now I'm going to go, okay, well, now I'm going to go, you want to talk destruction, I'll show you destruction. Now I got this, So now I get to search for a card and put it back. Oh, then it says, unless it specifies, shuffle, always shuffle after you search through a deck. Boom. So now we go like that, and that's basically how the game is played.
Okay, but you would have to have 2 to take that next one, right?
Correct,
Right.
but now Tyson would just need to draw another.
I
But
have-
now, like my
Do
destructions
you
at
win
2,
by 2, or do you have to?
you have to have the power of
So
2.
if it's 2 to 1, he would have won that one too. But if it's the
Correct.
3, he wouldn't
So now
have
we'll
won that
go.
with the
So
2 to
now
1.
let's say we'll go again. Now my destructions. I'm going to play my destruction here, and my destruction's at level 2, and then Tyson plays like his wither right there. So, now his wither level 1 versus my destruction level 2.
Okay.
His wither lowers my destruction, so now it's actually not quite good enough to get this. So it lowers its X ability by 1. So now it only produces 1.
So you
rune
need to
instead
beat
of
him
2.
by 2.
No, only because he's played Wither against me.
Wither does
Because
that.
Wither
I can't
specifically
read
weakens
Wither.
my card.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I would do then on my turn is the same thing. I'd augment it. So now I'm up to 3,
He brings you down.
and
to
then
2.
he brings me down. So my spell is level 3 against his level 1. So I definitely win and have the opportunity to get the reward. But then we check what's my runic power. Well, it's 3 minus 1, 2, which is still good enough to get this.
Got it.
So I get this card. If it was like this, I would not succeed. I would still win or whatever, but I wouldn't get this. And now that we're looking at this
What
like
if you
this,
win but don't get it?
right? So now looking at like this here, since I decided to go all in and kind of cast this destruction like this,
Right.
it's screwing up my balance. I can't add this 3rd destruction to my row here, so I just have to discard this. I don't get to power up my destruction. I'd still get the runic card, and I'd still get to, I'd still get the benefits and stuff like that, and I'd still get 2 favor points if I wanted to and go up to 3. But,
Got it.
yeah.
So you're either fighting over these things, which gives you 2 points, or a combination, or it gives you a combination of points or spells
Right.
and or spells. These are just giving you're fighting over a spell,
Right, but then, yeah, you're just fighting over this
the
specific
current
spell.
spell.
So this is what
And
you
if you're
know.
fighting here, you're just going to draw one.
You're fighting for the random card on top.
So
yes.
if you're uncontested here, you just have to cast it to win.
Yes, if you're uncontested. So if I just wanted to cast this chameleon right now, uncontested, I would take this back, I'd put it in, I'd gain 1 favor point because that's what happens when you balance a chameleon. So I'd gain 1 point for that, and uncontested draw a card off here.
Okay.
Libraries are a little different. So even if we were both fighting each other here and we
We
cast
both
and we're the
draw.
same thing, we both draw.
If you tie, you both
If you
draw.
tie at a library, both players draw.
Okay.
So the libraries are there really to just kind of, they're there for the kind of easy cards.
So in the ways to get points are balancing the purples,
Balancing the purples, yep.
doing this,
Getting your mastery,
getting those citadels.
correct.
Is
And
that
that's
it?
pretty much it. And then at the end of the point, there's the final judgment, which, let me see if we can go into, the spells. The one thing.
So this one looks like it's just saying that if both of my schools are greater than the value of one of yours, I win this.
Well,
But you probably.
Hold on one
Oh,
second.
that's tricky.
So at the end of the game, the Lord. Let's see if we have.
Oh, more knowledge.
So it seems judgment of the scholar. I have strictly more knowledge in a school. I have strictly more knowledge in a school than any of my opponent's schools.
So it's whoever has
So
the
you would take
school
So
with the
in
most
one
knowledge.
school, yeah, whoever has
No,
this-
knowledge is just how much this is your school.
It's a solid
Right.
blue.
How
Right.
much did you build up? So
and
your
you
Reds
beat
beat his.
both of these.
No,
two.
but
you
your
would,
Reds.
you would win right now because your Reds is 4. That's the most anybody has in a school right now. So if the game were to end right now, you would get judgment of the scholar because you have 4 in a school, and my biggest school is 3, and your biggest school is 4.
So this isn't blue.
Right.
Isn't knowledge.
Blue is not knowledge. That's
No.
what I was.
Right,
confused
knowledge
by.
is just how many. Yeah,
How
Right. So
collectively
this one
your
would
spells
be
in one
judgment of the
category.
week. The smallest stack in my spell book is strictly larger than any of my opponents.
So that wouldn't. So neither of us would get that.
You'd win that one too.
Or how would we do that?
No, because that would be, so that one would be, yeah, so if I had, that would be like if everybody had 2. So if I had like 2 in all of mine, and you had 3 in one of yours, 2 in the rest, and 1 in
Well, I
one.
can't do 3, but
You
it's not
burned one,
balanced,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, if you did like, so if you did like this, 3, 2,
Oh, I see.
2, 2, you would have, my smallest stack is 2. And my smallest stack is bigger than at least one of your stacks. Your smallest. So it's whoever has the biggest smallest stack.
Gotcha.
yes,
Yeah.
would be that particular one. So it's going to be different each time.
Right.
So we randomize who has that, and that just says there on the judgment card what it's
Okay.
going to be.
I think I'm good.
So any other questions? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll come back with round number 1 of Runic.